I have a bit of an interesting career. I'll start by telling you about that because it helps set the stage for this. I've been in consulting for 11 years. I actually started directly out of undergrad, and I've spent my whole career with the same firm, always in management consulting. And I'd say about 95% of my time is spent in procurement and procurement transformation. I do mostly consumer retail and food and beverage, and so I've seen a lot of different types of companies. And along the way, I've learned that there's really some companies that differentiate themselves in the way that they deal with their suppliers. So I wanted to pull together some insights that I've gathered from that, and also some work that at A.T. Kearney we do a study into return on supply management assets, and just tell you a little bit about what I've seen what it means to be a leader in innovation, and specifically in procurement. So I'd say when I first started 11 years ago and we went into a meeting with suppliers, the first thing that we always talk about was cost, right? How do we compress their margin? How do we get the lowest cost for our client and make sure that we walk away with the best deal? Now, when I walk into a meeting now, the first word that typically comes out of my mouth is collaboration, teamwork, innovation, right? So that's a big change within 11 years, but it's not new to innovate with your suppliers, right? But I'd say like specifically some of the leaders in the market who are really doing this, and I have up here Zara and H&M, where literally their suppliers are telling them like, here's how you get it to your customer faster, these are the designs you should have out. They're on top of it even before some of the designers of Zara are able to pull together their ideas. So they've really set the standard here, and what happens is that they push everyone else to meet that standard. And so I've seen, I think, specifically within the past 5 years, whereas you may have more companies in stage 1 and 2, where they're doing sort of like isolated improvement. Maybe they're telling the supplier like, okay, let's change this cap, make it a little bit cheaper, right? Then they're maybe doing more joint process improvement. Then there's broader collaboration. I'm seeing a lot more companies now trying to move to that stage 4. So really integrated, collaborative, innovative supply partnerships. So when we think about supply excellence, it's actually only one part of 3 things that we say make up procurement excellence. So first of all, the team is the linchpin of everything. You got to have a strong team, and they're the ones who are going to drive your category excellence and your supply excellence. And we typically think about price, right? That's where category management comes in. But there's a lot of value that can be derived from supplier excellence, right? So part of that is reducing your risk in your supply chain. Another part is innovating. And then the last part is just creating a seamless supply relationship that improves your overall business. So why do you need to work with your suppliers, right? I mean, I think we often think of our relationships with our suppliers a little bit like a marriage. Like if you squeeze them, they might stick around 1 or 2 years, but then they're out of there at year 3, right? So long term, so short term you might get some benefit, but long term you really need to stick with them and develop move from a more tactical to a more strategic supplier relationship. So what's the value? So I mentioned before that we do this study called Return on Supply Management Assets, and what we see is that companies that really innovate and collaborate with their suppliers perform better on all the different aspects of the supply chain. And I'll give you a couple examples. First of all, they're 1.6 times more effective at taking out cost in the short term. They also generally are 2.5 times better at managing their risk in the supply chain. They innovate 7 times more than companies that don't collaborate with their suppliers. And I think my favorite is that they actually have generally 13 times better talent retention within the procurement organization, right? So because they're doing, your team is doing something a little bit different, something that drives value. And we give here some examples of the possibilities. You know, you can more innovation, better planning, reduced material costs, better distribution, and then improved operations, right? But it also expands more widely across the business. So here are 3 examples of sort of best-in-class innovation. You may have heard about these. Like, you really want to influence, integrate, and invest in these types of suppliers, right? The ones that are critical to your supply chain, the ones that are going to help differentiate you and your product. So Singapore Airlines is pretty cool. They teamed directly with Airbus, and then they helped influence the cabin design and layout of the Dreamliner, and they were the first ones to actually fly the Dreamliner. So they basically were able to position what they thought their customers would like and influence the design of the aircraft. Red Bull works exclusively with one bottler. Coca-Cola also has collaborative relationships with their bottlers. They're always buying them and then selling them back and then buying them back again. So, and then an example as well, so BMW and SGL Carbon, they actually set up a factory together to produce carbon fibers to make their electric cars. So the question is, like, how does this apply to you and your procurement organization? And is this only for billion-dollar companies? Can I do this if I'm a startup? Can I do this if I'm just starting out? Yeah, the answer is yes. And it's actually pretty easy. And even if you don't have collaborative relationships with your suppliers today, you can put them on the right track. So here's some examples of what we actually do with clients that have been very successful. So first, you have collaborative cost reduction meetings. You invite the suppliers into a workshop and you take a look at your products and you say, like, how can you improve the product? How can you make it better? And most interestingly, we do this both with incumbent suppliers and with non-incumbent suppliers. They love to get in and have discussions with you and say, like, I can do this better, and let me tell you how. We do like VAVE Scrum sessions. We look at the packaging and then also the products, right? So like what could be better? We either invite suppliers, or we do it with R&D across different business units. We did a cool thing where we had a sample showroom and we had all different types of products, including competitor products and our clients' products. And we did a comparison, said like, okay, what's the difference between these types of products? How can we improve, innovate, and be better, right? When you were tactically touching the product, it makes a difference. We also engage external design firms, almost like a neutral third party, so no one's offended. And then we bring in the supplier and the R&D terms, we all work together. And then we do things like designing for cost, right? So we think about, here's an example of a grill, and the client had the 6 different types of grills, and they were all at different price points, but they were a completely different model. Now, if you platform the grill, so like you make the base of the grill the same, but then you add extra bells and whistles for each different price point, you can get an overall better design, and of course, right, value for your supplier who's producing the product, or value for your internal supply chain. So this is actually my last slide. So I think what's really important, though, is in order to be able to do this, and sometimes we're resistant, right? We don't want our suppliers don't want to open up, and we don't want to open up, right? So you need to be realistic. You're going to need to fund this. You're going to need to make sure that you have an investment if you need to invest in suppliers, and also you have the resources available to speak with suppliers. You're going to need to provide transparency, and that might be transparency on your side as much as on their side. And also, you need to make sure that you're teaming to work together and joint and deliver and win. So I'll stop there, and if anyone has any questions, I actually am jetting off to London after this. I'm very excited. So I will be around for the first part of the panel, but I'll hand it back to you guys.
So I lied. I'm actually not going to let you guys ask any questions, but thank you, Caitlin. So.